A billionaire receives a call. Dad, come pick me up. But he has no children still. The voice makes him freeze. Asterisk, the cell phone vibrated on the polished mahogany table. Alexander Grant, 38, frowned as he noticed an unknown number on the screen. Asterisk, normally he would have ignored it, but something, perhaps the boredom of yet another afternoon signing acquisition contracts, made him answer. Asterisk, Alexander Grant, speaking. Asterisk, Dad, is that you? A child's trembling, frightened voice came from the other end. Can you pick me up from school? The teacher said Mom's in the hospital. Asterisk, Alexander froze. His brain, trained to analyze and dismantle entire corporations, seemed incapable of processing that one word. Dad? Asterisk, who is this? He managed to ask. The whiskey glass slipped from his hand, shattering on the marble floor. It's me, Miguel. I'm 6 years old. The small voice carried an urgency mixed with fear. My teacher, Miss Oliveira, is helping me call because Mom didn't come to pick me up today. She's sick. Mom, the name echoed in his mind like a ghost. Louisa, 6 years ago. Paris, nights of champagne, conversations about art and philosophy till dawn. Asterisk, an intense passion that lasted 3 months, until she disappeared without a trace. Asterisk, Miguel, the name escaped as a whisper. 6 years, the math added up perfectly. Asterisk, as the boy gave him the school address. Alexander was already moving, grabbing his coat and car keys. Asterisk, his body operated on autopilot, while his mind spun in a whirlwind of thoughts. Asterisk, father? He was a father. The word echoed in his head like a deafening bell. I'm on my way, Miguel. Don't leave. Asterisk, on the way to the school. His hands gripped the Bentley's steering wheel so tightly that his knuckles turned white. Asterisk, for the first time in years, the powerful Alexander Grant was completely out of control. Asterisk, memories of Louisa flooded his mind. Her enigmatic smile, the emerald pendant she always wore. Their conversations about the future. Asterisk, how could she have hidden something so important? The answer began to form when he remembered the last night he saw her. The phone call from his father. Asterisk, it's time to end this adventure. Alexander, mother and I will not accept a waitress in the family. Asterisk, Richard Grant's icy voice, the veiled threat. Asterisk, we've taken care of it. Asterisk, the school building soon appeared, a cheerful structure that mocked his chaotic state of mind. Asterisk, in the playground. A single child waited, sitting on a red bench, a Spider-Man backpack at his feet. Asterisk, at his side. A woman who must have been Miss Oliveira kept a protective hand on his shoulder. Alexander got out of the car with trembling legs. Each step toward the boy seemed like an eternity. Asterisk, when their eyes finally met, it was like looking into a mirror of the past, but with one crucial difference that hit him like a punch. Asterisk, the boy's black skin. Asterisk, Miguel had Alexander's facial structure, the same piercing dark brown eyes, even the small mark near his right eyebrow, a Grant family trait. It was undeniable. Dad. Miguel's voice trembled slightly, a mixture of hope and fear that shattered Alexander's heart. Hi, Miguel. That was all he could say, his throat tight with emotions he had never felt before. The boy stood up hesitantly, and in a sudden impulse, ran and hugged Alexander's legs. Asterisk, the simple, pure gesture broke down his last defenses. Asterisk, he knelt down to the boy's height, his son, and returned the hug, feeling the small body tremble slightly against him. Asterisk, Miss Oliveira approached and explained the situation. Asterisk, Louisa had been rushed to the hospital that morning. Asterisk, before losing consciousness. She had told her neighbor to look for Alexander's card, in a special box. The frightened boy had insisted on speaking to his father in person. In the car, Miguel talked about his mother, about school, about his favorite cartoons. Asterisk, each word, a new piece in the puzzle of his life that Alexander didn't even know was incomplete. Asterisk, looking in the rearview mirror, he saw the boy hugging his Spider-Man backpack, his eyes so much like his own, heavy with concern for his mother. Asterisk, what Alexander couldn't imagine was that phone call hadn't been just a twist of fate. Asterisk, behind those childish eyes lay a truth that would shake the Grant empire to its foundations, a truth carefully preserved by Louisa for 6 years, waiting for the right moment to come to light. Asterisk, the hospital appeared on the horizon, its windows shining like hundreds of watchful eyes in the night falling over the city. Asterisk, Alexander held Miguel's hand as they walked through the automatic doors of the emergency room, both sharing a silent nervousness that transcended the brief time they had known each other. Asterisk, fate had intertwined their lives in a way neither of them could have predicted. Asterisk, and nothing, not money, not the power of the Grants would be able to undo it. Asterisk, an unexpected encounter between father and son touched your heart. Asterisk, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to discover the secrets Louisa hid for years, and how the empire of one of the most powerful families in the country would be shaken by a 6-year-old boy. Asterisk, the hospital was bustling when Alexander arrived with Miguel. Asterisk, rushing nurses and the characteristic smell of antiseptic set the scene where he would discover a truth that would change his life forever. Asterisk, Mr. Grant. Asterisk, a middle-aged doctor approached him. Asterisk, I'm Dr. Torres. The boy's mother is in the ICU. Asterisk, how is she? Alexander asked, feeling Miguel squeeze his hand tightly. Stable, but critical. Advanced leukemia. She hesitated, glancing at the boy. Can we talk in private? Asterisk, after leaving Miguel with a friendly nurse, Dr. Torres, got straight to the point. Asterisk, Luisa refused treatment for almost a year. By the time she finally sought help, the cancer had spread. She needs an urgent bone marrow transplant. I'll do whatever it takes, Alexander replied immediately. The best donor would be a first-degree relative. Asterisk, the realization hit Alexander like a bolt of lightning. Asterisk, Miguel. Asterisk, yes, but we need the consent of his legal guardian. Asterisk, I'm his father. Asterisk, according to our records, there is no registered father. Legally we need asterisk, I understand. Alexander was already calling his lawyer. Juliana arrived in less than half an hour, impeccable in her gray suit. She was an expert at solving impossible problems. DNA test and emergency paternity recognition. She said on the phone to the judge on duty, asterisk, it's a matter of life and death. The compatible donor is my client's son. While Juliana worked on the paperwork, Alexander finally saw Luisa, unrecognizable in the hospital bed. Tubes and machines keeping her alive. Asterisk, she was a shadow of the vibrant woman he had met in Paris. Asterisk, why didn't you tell me? He whispered, holding her cold hand. A nurse approached with a worn envelope. Asterisk, she kept this in her bedside table. Inside was a letter that had never been sent, and photos of Miguel as a baby. Luisa's delicate handwriting trembled. On the last pages, asterisk, after your father offered me money to disappear, I understood that our son would always be seen as a mistake, a stain on the perfect Grant lineage. Asterisk, when your mother said that a mixed-race child would never be accepted as an heir, I realized that prejudice was deeply rooted in your family. Alexander felt his blood boil. His parents, the respected Richard and Victoria Grant, had manipulated everything. Asterisk, destroyed his chance to know his own son. Out of pure racial prejudice, the DNA test was a mere formality. One look at Miguel revealed the truth that no laboratory needed to confirm. Asterisk, with a positive result in hand, the judge signed the emergency authorization for the transplant. Asterisk, that night, Alexander took Miguel to his penthouse. Asterisk, the luxurious apartment, decorated in cold, impersonal tones, suddenly seemed inappropriate for a child. Asterisk, is this where you live, Dad? Miguel asked, his eyes wide at the panoramic view. The word dad still sounded strange but strangely right. Asterisk, yes, but we'll make it more colorful for you. The phone rang as he improvised dinner. It was his father. Asterisk, so, it's true. Richard Grant's icy voice echoed without any greeting. My detective at the hospital informed me. Are you recognizing that bastard? Asterisk, that bastard? Alexander replied with dangerous calm. Is your grandson? And yes, I am recognizing my son. Asterisk, you can't do this. Think of the company, the family. Asterisk, I'm thinking about my family, actually. Asterisk, Alexander, be reasonable. What will our shareholders and partners think when they find out the next in line is, asterisk, a black boy? Alexander finished, his voice low and cutting. Finish the sentence. Dad, have the courage to say out loud what you really think. Asterisk, the heavy silence on the other end said it all. Asterisk, there will be a board meeting tomorrow. Richard finally said, asterisk, we expect you to attend. I'm sure we can come to an agreement. Asterisk, an agreement. Like the one you offered Luisa, 6 years ago. After hanging up, he found Miguel drawing in the living room. What are you doing, champ? Asterisk, a drawing for Mom, for when she wakes up. Alexander looked at the drawing. 3 figures holding hands, a woman, a man, and a boy, all smiling, under a bright sun. Asterisk, Dad, is Mom going to be okay? The question was heavy with a worry no child should carry. We're doing everything we can. He replied honestly. Asterisk, and you're going to help. You're very brave. Asterisk, when Miguel fell asleep, Alexander made 3 strategic phone calls. Asterisk, to Juliana, instructing her to gather all documentation on his parents' actions. Asterisk, to Marcus Chen, his CFO, and only true friend at the company. Asterisk, and 2. Diana Williams, an investigative journalist at the Financial Times. Asterisk, the next morning, the bone marrow donation went smoothly. Asterisk, Miguel, surprisingly calm, faced the procedure with admirable courage. Asterisk, meanwhile, Alexander received an enigmatic message from Marcus. Asterisk, documents found in your father's private safe. You need to see this now. Hours later, leafing through a folder of documents in the hospital cafeteria, Alexander discovered the unimaginable asterisk detailed records of how his parents had systematically destroyed any chance of Luisa contacting him over the past 6 years. Asterisk, every attempt she had made had been intercepted and sabotaged. Asterisk, what Richard and Victoria Grant could not have foreseen was that the son they had raised to be ruthless in business would now turn those same skills against them. Asterisk, the same calculating coldness they had so admired would be used to expose a truth that would shake the foundations of their family empire. Asterisk, no one in that aristocratic family could have imagined that the 6-year-old boy with a brave heart and black skin would become not only the rightful heir to the Grant Empire, but also the catalyst for a transformation that would destroy decades of prejudice disguised as tradition. And while Miguel fell asleep, exhausted after helping save his mother, Alexander quietly planned a revenge that would bring justice, not only to his son, but to all those his family had harmed over the years. The Grant Enterprises boardroom was buzzing with tension as the board members waited for Alexander to arrive. Richard Grant, impeccable in his Italian suit, nervously checked his watch. Victoria, his wife, kept a straight face, though her fingers drummed incessantly on the mahogany table. He's late, muttered one of the board members, as if summoned by those words. The doors opened. Alexander entered, not alone as expected, but accompanied by 3 people: Juliana, his lawyer, Marcus Chen, chief financial officer, and to Richard and Victoria's horror, Diana Williams, the most feared investigative journalist in the country. Sorry I'm late, Alexander announced calmly. I was at the hospital, with my son. The word son caused a heavy silence. Richard cleared his throat. I believe this is a private board meeting. His guests should leave. Alexander smiled, a cold smile he had never directed at his parents before. Actually, Dad, I called this meeting, and they are central to today's agenda. With a gesture, Marcus activated the projector. First image showed a bank document, a transfer of $2 million to a private security company. Recognize this, Dad. It's the payment you made to have Louisa followed, in Paris, and then in London. Victoria paled. Richard remained impassive, though a muscle throbbed in his jaw. Private business. Nothing to do with the company. Really. Alexander moved on to the next slide. What about this? An internal memo ordering that all correspondence to me be routed through your office first. Or this. A new slide. Transcripts of Louisa's calls to his secretary, all blocked at their request. The board members exchanged uneasy glances. Alexander continued relentlessly, his voice controlled. You systematically prevented me from knowing about my own son. Why? You know very well why, Victoria finally said, her voice trembling. That woman, that child, they're not like us. Not white. You mean, Alexander finished, his voice cutting. Let me show you what your prejudice has caused. The next slide showed Louisa in her hospital bed, tubes and machines keeping her alive. Some board members looked away, uncomfortable. This is the mother of my child, fighting cancer that could have been treated long ago, if she hadn't been alone, running from you. Diana Williams took notes furiously. Richard realized, too late, the trap he had fallen into. What exactly do you want, Alexander? He asked, trying to regain control. Justice, Alexander replied simply, and change. Juliana stepped forward, handing out folders to each board member. What you have in front of you is a proposal for the restructuring of Grant Enterprises. New diversity programs. Scholarships for talented young black people. A. Foundation to combat institutional racism. All funded by 30% of the company's annual profits. Richard slammed his fist on the table in anger. This is absurd. The shareholders will never. The shareholders have already approved it. Marcus interrupted, displaying a document with signatures. While you were busy trying to hide your prejudice. Alexander secured the support of 62% of the shareholders. Impossible, Victoria whispered. Quite possible. When they saw this, Alexander said, moving on to the next slide. Personal emails from Richard and Victoria, explicitly discussing how to prevent impure blood from contaminating the Grant lineage. The room fell deathly silent. One of the oldest members of the board stood up, nauseated. This is indefensible. Richard, and this, Alexander continued relentless, is only what I won't be handing over to the press. Yet, Diana Williams smiled, her notepad full, unless the series of reports I begin publishing tomorrow is accompanied by concrete announcements of changes at the company. Richard looked at his son with a mixture of anger and disbelief. You would destroy your own family, family. Alexander laughed without humor. You prevented me from knowing my own son. Out of prejudice, you left Louisa fighting cancer alone, to protect your reputations. No, father. You and mother destroyed this family long ago. With a decisive gesture, Alexander slid a final document across the table. Your resignation as president, effective immediately. You keep your shares, but without voting power. Mother will do the same. And, if we refuse, Victoria challenged, her voice weak. Alexander smiled sadly. Then tomorrow, the whole country will know exactly what kind of people are behind the Grant Empire. Every racist email, every attempt at sabotage, every penny spent to keep a grandson away from his grandfather, because of the color of his skin. Richard stared at his son for a long moment, before picking up the pen. His hand trembled as he signed. You don't understand what you're doing, he muttered. Asterisk on the contrary, father, Alexander replied. Gathering the signed documents, I'm doing exactly what you taught me. Eliminating any obstacle to the future of the company. Asterisk, the difference is that my vision of the future includes people like my son. Asterisk when the meeting ended. The board members left in silence, avoiding looking at Richard and Victoria. Asterisk, the empire they had built was crumbling around them. Asterisk, not because of external attacks, but because of the seeds of prejudice they had planted. Asterisk Alexander remained behind, watching his parents, who seemed to have aged decades in just an hour. Asterisk Louisa is recovering, he said softly. Asterisk Miguel asked about his grandparents yesterday. Victoria looked up surprised. Despite everything, Alexander continued. Asterisk he still doesn't know the truth about you. Asterisk that will depend entirely on your next actions. Asterisk as he walked out of the room that had once been the symbol of his parents' untouchable power, Alexander felt a weight lifted from his shoulders. The Grant Empire would not end today. Asterisk it would merely transform asterisk into something that reflected not only the power of money, but the strength of justice. Asterisk Diana Williams waited in the hallway, her analytical gaze studying Alexander as if trying to decipher the man behind the ruthless executive facade. Asterisk, why did you choose me for this story? She asked bluntly. Asterisk, you could have used any reporter. Asterisk Alexander paused, considering her question. Asterisk, because some truths need to be told by someone who isn't afraid to take on power. He replied finally. Asterisk, and because some changes only happen when they're exposed to the light of day. Asterisk what no one could have predicted. At that moment, was that the real battle was just beginning? Asterisk as the Grant Empire prepared for its greatest transformation, invisible forces were already mobilizing in the shadows, determined to preserve the status quo. The question remained, would a father's love for his newly discovered son be strong enough to take on the system he himself had helped build? Asterisk the first rays of sunlight streamed through the windows of the hospital room, where Louisa, still weak but visibly better, watched Miguel sleeping in the armchair beside her. Asterisk Alexander entered quietly, carrying coffee and daisies, her favorites, as Miguel had mentioned. Asterisk how are you feeling today? He asked, placing the flowers in a vase. Asterisk better. Every day, Louisa replied. Asterisk the doctors say the transplant was a success. 6 months had passed since that phone call that changed everything. The Grant's world had been turned upside down. Asterisk saving not only Louisa's life, but also Alexander's soul. The press conference is scheduled for today, he said. Are you sure you're ready? Louisa nodded. We've kept too many secrets already. Outside, journalists were already gathering the news that the heir to the Grant Empire would be appearing with his 6-year-old black son, and the boy's mother, a former employee dismissed due to racial prejudice, had spread like wildfire. Asterisk in the now strangely silent Grant mansion, Richard watched the preparations on television. The last few weeks had been devastating. Friends had distanced themselves. Clubs had revoked his memberships. Invitations had stopped coming. Asterisk his fortune remained intact, but the status he valued so much had crumbled. Asterisk turn that off, Victoria begged. Richard kept his eyes fixed on the screen. We need to face what we've done. At the hospital, Miguel woke up, rubbing his eyes. Dad, is it time for the TV interview? Asterisk in the lobby, transformed into a press room. Diana Williams would be the mediator. Asterisk her series of reports on corporate racism at Grant Enterprises had earned her a Pulitzer nomination. Asterisk when the family entered, Miguel between Alexander and Louisa, all holding hands. The camera flashes lit up the room. We are here today, Alexander began, not just to tell our story, but to announce the future. Asterisk, he explained how the Miguel Grant Foundation was already distributing scholarships to talented young black people. Asterisk how the company had revamped its diversity policies, and how the case was inspiring other corporations. More importantly, he continued, looking at Louisa and Miguel, we are starting our own family, not based on outdated traditions or disguised prejudices, but on love and respect. Asterisk Louisa took the microphone, her voice weak but firm. Asterisk for years I was silenced by fear and power. Asterisk today, I say that no child should be deprived of the right to know his parents, because of the color of his skin. Diana directed the first question to Miguel. What is it like to have found your father after so long? The boy replied with surprising maturity. It's like finding a missing piece of a puzzle. Asterisk now. The picture makes sense. At that moment, Richard Grant made a decision. He called his son for the first time in months. Asterisk, we watched the interview. We would like to meet Miguel, properly this time. 2 weeks later, in a neutral park, the meeting took place. Richard and Victoria seemed smaller, more fragile. Asterisk Victoria cried when she saw her grandson up close for the first time. Asterisk the same eyes as Alexander. Asterisk on a face that, despite the different color, undeniably carried the Grant blood. He plays chess. Alexander commented. Miguel beats me half the time. Asterisk really? Richard asked. a spark of genuine interest in his eyes. Asterisk, the road to redemption would be long, if there was one. Some wounds were too deep to heal completely, but for Miguel, who had never met his grandparents before, there were no previous resentments to overcome, only new relationships to build. A year after that fateful phone call, the new headquarters of the Miguel Grant Foundation was inaugurated. Asterisk, at the entrance, a simple plaque told the story. Asterisk, how prejudice almost robbed a boy of his father. Asterisk, and almost took his mother's life. Asterisk, but how, in the end, love and justice prevailed. Asterisk, in the gardens of the family's new home, Luisa watched Alexander teach Miguel to ride a bike. Asterisk, sometimes I wonder, she reflected to Diana, asterisk, what would have happened if I hadn't gotten sick, if I had never allowed Miguel to call Alexander. Diana smiled. Perhaps some truths need extraordinary circumstances to come to light. Asterisk, Richard and Victoria remained rich, but isolated, trapped in a world that saw them for who they really were. Their real punishment was not losing money, asterisk, but finally realizing that the empire built on prejudice had cost them the love of their only son. Asterisk, meanwhile, Alexander discovered that true wealth was not in the billions in his bank account. Asterisk, but in the simple moments, helping with homework, telling bedtime stories, teaching values that really mattered. Asterisk, he watched Miguel ride his bike alone for the first time, and Luisa cheer excitedly at asterisk. In less than a year, they had gone from strangers to a close-knit family. Asterisk, proving that when justice prevails, we don't just correct past mistakes, we create entirely new possibilities for the future. If this story of overcoming adversity touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more stories that show how true revenge is not about repaying evil, but about building something so extraordinary that your enemies are forced to see their own mediocrity. Asterisk.